Hey everyone, my name is Rob Case and I teach surfers of all levels how to catch more waves with less effort through better paddling technique, positioning, timing, and paddling effectiveness. Today, I'm going to talk about how to paddle faster, specifically speed. What is paddling speed? Where does it come from? So speed is defined as covering a certain distance in a specific amount of time, or distance divided by time. For the speeds we paddle at, we typically will define speed as meters per second. There are a variety of variables that impact this, including the paddling technique used, the design of the board used, the water conditions, even salinity of the water, fitness level of the paddler, and others. But if we break speed down even further, we gain some insight into a very efficient process to increase our speed in the water. So I'm going to throw down some algebra for you, and I hope it doesn't scare you away. I promise to make it as simple as I can. Speed is a function of two variables. In other words, if we multiply two things together, we get speed. You've all heard the first one. Paddle faster, someone will say. Windmill, as fast as you can. This is the profound advice you hear from your buddy sitting on the outside when you're caught inside, sucking in ocean foam and salt water, going backward. What they're actually talking about, without knowing it, is a term called stroke rate, or the number of stroke cycles per unit of time. Typically, for paddling and swimming, we designate this as cycles per second or cycles per minute. Since we have speed already designated as meters per second, let's show stroke rate as cycles per second. Our formula now reads, speed, which is meters per second, is equal to cycles per second times something else. So all of those coaches and friends and strangers who are yelling at you to paddle faster or move your arms faster were in essence correct, according to this formula at least. But there's this other variable that makes a profound impact on speed. I might even argue more so than stroke rate. In fact, this other variable and stroke rate both impact each other. In the end, they actually balance each other out. For example, if you have a very high stroke rate, as your friends and the salty local keep telling you to do, but this other variable is very low, guess what? You're not going to go very fast. In fact, it's probably worse because you're using so much energy to move your arms as quick as you can, but you're not getting anywhere. Ever have that feeling? At least your sessions are short when that happens because you gas out pretty quickly. Seems totally illogical, doesn't it? Let's burn a ton of energy but not go anywhere. So what's this other variable then? Some very simple algebra can help us figure this one out. So if speed, or meters per second, is equal to stroke rate, or cycles per second, then this other variable has to eliminate cycles and include meters, because the left-hand side of the equation has to equal the right-hand side of the equation. In algebra, those are the rules. So we want meters to be the numerator of this new variable, so we'll put that one on top. Cycles needs to be eliminated, so we'll put that as the denominator, or on the bottom. That way, cycles cancels out when these two variables are multiplied together, and we're left with meters per cycle, or meters per stroke cycle. What is this? Just think about it for a moment. Meters per cycle, meters per stroke cycle, meters per stroke. Whoa! So this is how far you go with each single stroke. The distance per stroke. Now it makes sense. If you're swinging your arms as fast as you can, but those strokes aren't sending you very far, then you're not going to go very fast. That means that distance per stroke describes how effective each stroke is. Stroke rate is how fast you're turning over your arms, and distance per stroke is how effective those individual strokes are at propelling you in the forward direction. Now, this is incredibly important. Wow, what a way to think about it. To move fast, and I mean really fast, is to have a high stroke rate, a high number of cycles per second, while at the same time having a high distance per stroke, a high meters per cycle. Simple, right? I mean, the math makes perfect sense. So why is it so hard to actually do this in real life? Now, this goes back to how stroke rate and distance per stroke affect each other. We need to balance these two variables. If we use high stroke rate combined with high distance per stroke, that would be ideal. But at some point, as the stroke rate increases, the distance per stroke is negatively affected, simply because stroke mechanics limit this. The surfer doesn't get the propulsion required to move a long distance per stroke because the arm is rushing through the cycle so quickly. The arm doesn't get to the necessary places it needs to be in the underwater arm stroke at the right time in order to provide effective propulsion. In addition, when the arm stroke is rushed, a phenomenon called slipping is much more prevalent, and slipping is a sign that we're being inefficient with our energy and ineffective with our propulsion. I go into way more detail in the Surfing Paddling Academy online course, but for now, all you need to know is that slipping is a bad thing. So how do we find that balance then? How do we find the best stroke rate combined with the best distance per stroke? This depends on your goal. Do you want to go as fast as you possibly can? Do you want to use as little energy as you can? Would you like to split the difference and have good speed, but be efficient with your energy? I mean, there's an infinite number of combinations on this spectrum. But if we were to look at a typical surf session and the activity within it, we might be able to direct our goals to an efficient use of our time and energy. You may have already seen me show this before in the free video series you can sign up for at my website, surfingpaddling.com. This is a study conducted at a contest that breaks down time spent by activity. It shows paddling takes up more than 65% of the time and over 85% of the active time, the time the surfers are moving. Now, keep in mind, this study was conducted with competitive surfers during a competitive heat, and it takes place at a point break. So presumably, they would be riding longer and more frequently than many of us recreational surfers. One could very reasonably argue that for recreational surfers, paddling takes us well over 95% of the active time in the water. But there's more. In addition to breaking out all paddling, it further breaks out paddling for a wave versus paddling around and paddling out. We can see that a majority of paddling is us just paddling around the lineup and out to the lineup rather than paddling for a wave. One might look at this and show that regular paddling accounts for over 90% of the total paddling, while paddling to catch a wave accounts for the remaining 10% of total paddling done. So given this, don't you think our primary goal with paddling is to optimize energy use? Since most of our paddling is our regular paddling stroke and not the sprint, then we need to achieve a paddling stroke that moves us through the water effectively but uses very little energy. We want to develop a paddling technique that we can increase speed quickly if we need it and makes sure that our efficiency of movement remains high. That's why I teach in the Level 1 paddling technique course how to paddle with less energy, how to paddle faster, and how to prevent injury. And in Level 2, I break down paddling to catch a wave. Once we know how to use less energy, move faster, and not hurt ourselves in the process. So, going back to our formula, let's key in on what we need to work on first and foremost in order to lay a strong foundation for how to paddle faster. To increase speed, or meters per second, we want to increase stroke rate and distance per stroke. We get this. But now, after all we've talked about, since stroke rate impacts energy the most, but is also the easiest to increase or decrease at a moment's notice, then if we can optimize stroke rate first, then we will be using less energy while we paddle. And as a byproduct, we begin to better understand distance per stroke. Haha! Is this looking familiar yet from the free video series you signed up for at surfingpaddling.com? This is the answer to how we achieve our 3 Level 1 goals of how to paddle with less energy, how to paddle faster, and how to prevent injury. Remember, the answer to this is to first reduce resistance and then increase propulsion in that order. Haha, looks familiar, right? Reduce stroke rate to an efficient baseline. Then work on improving distance per stroke. Crazy, right? So here's the extra cool thing. Once you gain an understanding and practice around the techniques used to optimize a foundation of stroke rate and distance per stroke, you'll be going faster with less effort already. Then, to go even faster, all you need to do is increase your stroke rate. It's so easy at that point. Since you've learned at that point how to propel yourself effectively through better technique, then each stroke takes you further, and you'll know when the stroke rate gets too high that it negatively affects the distance per stroke, or in other words, the effectiveness of each stroke's propulsion. You'll find that ultimate balance. It's so simple, isn't it? That's how you paddle faster, with less effort, without getting injured. Simple paddling technique. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked it, go ahead and click that button that says you liked it and subscribe to the YouTube channel. To get this information even faster, get more training, and for news and updates, subscribe to my monthly newsletter at surfingpaddling.com, and feel free to sign up for the free paddling technique training at surfingpaddling.com to learn more about how you can catch more waves with less effort. In the meantime, I'll see you in the water.